Good morning, everyone. Here's your Mormon news update for December 1st, 2025. On November 18th, the Deseret News reported the following. A new police report issued Tuesday indicates BYU basketball player Kennard Davis Jr. was in possession of marijuana when he was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence last Thursday, according to the Provo Police Department. I responded to assist on a traffic accident when I began to suspect impairment from one of the drivers. He was ultimately arrested for driving under the influence, a Provo police officer wrote in his report. Davis, 20, was involved in a two-car crash in Provo at approximately 11:40 a.m. Thursday morning, according to a news release from the PPD issued late Thursday evening. He sustained minor injuries in the crash and was transported to police headquarters for further investigation, according to Provo Police Public Information Officer Jana Lee Holland. The 6'6" junior from St. Louis, who spent 2 seasons at Southern Illinois before transferring to BYU last summer, accompanied the BYU basketball team to Boston for its game against UConn but did not play. He sat on the bench during the game wearing street clothes. Kennard Davis was held out for a violation of team rules. Head coach Kevin Young said after the number 7 Cougars lost 86-84 to number 3 UConn inside TD Garden in Boston. It is to be determined on the length of the suspension, Young said Saturday. Last Thursday night, BYU Athletics issued the following statement. We are aware of the allegations and looking into the situation. After Tuesday's report was released, a BYU spokesperson issued this statement. Kennard Davis has been suspended for violation of team rules. The length of the suspension is still to be determined. According to the circumstances section of the police report, Davis was given standard field sobriety tests and drug recognition evaluation and a blood urine test, and the report noted drugs involved. 6 Provo police officers responded to the call after the traffic accident at the intersection of 900 West and Center Street in Provo. According to the report, Davis was driving a black 2023 Tesla Model S, which was impounded at the scene. Holland told the Deseret News on Thursday night that the other driver was not transported to the hospital after the crash. This is actually pretty crazy to me. If I was going to BYU and not drinking coffee or tea or alcohol and not smoking, if I was there being a good person, attending my classes, and I simply resigned from the church, I would be kicked out. And yet this person, who was involved in a car accident and found to be under the influence, was given a suspension. Here is a follow-up from the Salt Lake Tribune. After being cited for allegedly driving under the influence earlier this month, BYU basketball player Kennard Davis will return to the team. Davis, 20, missed the last 2 games due to a university suspension. Number 9 BYU plays Miami in Orlando on Thursday afternoon. After serving a 2-game suspension, Kennard Davis will return to the BYU lineup for the Terry's Chocolate ESPN Events Invitational, a BYU spokesperson said in a statement. Davis is facing a Class B misdemeanor count of driving under the influence. He has pleaded not guilty to the charge. According to Provo police, Davis was involved in a car accident in Provo at around 11:45 a.m. on November 13th. When police arrived, they suspected Davis of a DUI, according to the police report. He was brought into the police station and cited, police said. Provo police said Davis was in possession of marijuana. Davis is a starter for BYU this season. He transferred from Southern Illinois this summer. I have watched several Mormon Stories episodes that show how BYU gives preferential treatment to star athletes, and it looks like this is another case of that. Speaking of basketball, here is an article that gives an interesting view on BYU basketball and a recent church change. It says, BYU is really good at college basketball. Although it is only November and preseason rankings do not matter, the Cougars are a legitimate national title contender this season. AJ DeBansa leads BYU. The number 1 player in the recruiting class of 2025 is averaging more than 20 points on 57% shooting, 6.8 rebounds, and 2.0 assists as a true freshman. He is as advertised. Is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints preparing for March Madness? The first weekend of April happens to be a very important weekend for college basketball in 2026. The Final Four will take place on Saturday, April 4th. Games will take place at 6 p.m. Eastern Time and 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That would normally present a scheduling conflict for General Conference. Attendees would normally be in session on Saturday night. They normally wouldn't be able to watch BYU in the Final Four if it gets there. Fortunately, that will no longer be an issue because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints decided not to include a Saturday evening session at General Conference beginning in April of 2026. Personally, I would be 0% surprised if the church canceled the Saturday evening session of General Conference to support BYU sports. Next, let's go to Australia for this news that says Australia's Mormon church is a cult that has allegedly exploited a loophole to allow it to claim tax deductions on up to $750 million of donations, a public submission to a government inquiry claims. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is accused in the submission of being essentially the only religious group in Australia where its members can claim a tax deduction on their tithes. The Mormon Church, which has a global $300 billion investment fund, also allegedly asks teenagers invasive questions about their sex lives, tearing families apart and targeting vulnerable people to join. The claims come after Nationals leader David Littleproud raised concerns about the U.S. branch of the Mormon Church outcompeting Australian farming families by paying $500 million for property here this year. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints provided an 1,100-word response, denying it was a cult, saying it complied with charity and tax rules, and had donated more than $2 billion to aid projects last year. Details of the accusations against the church are contained in a 29-page report compiled by Dr. Neville Rocco, KC, which was made public on Wednesday by a government inquiry into the recruitment methods and impacts of cults and organized fringe groups. His submission alleges the Mormon Church is a cult, one that has amassed staggering wealth at its members' expense. The submission also claims that the church has funneled $750 million of donations made in America through one of its entities, LDS Charities Australia, since 2014 to be able to claim a tax benefit. As a direct consequence, the Australian Tax Office has given the Australian LDS Church deductible gift receipt, DGR status, which has enabled Australian Mormons to claim 100% of their tax back on their tithing, Dr. Rocco's submission claims. It is likely that little, if any, Australian tithing goes towards humanitarian aid. Former Mormon Bishop Simon Southerton said, "The Mormon Church could continue without any members forever because of its income from its investments now." He said the church pressured members to give 10% of their income, a tithe, often leaving young families and pensioners struggling to pay bills. Members are really hurting and they're really struggling. And I think this is why a lot of them are leaving this. Quite a large exodus from the LDS Church in Australia, he added. Dr. Rocco's submission to the Victorian government inquiry into the recruitment methods and impacts of cults and organized fringe groups also accuses the church of controlling its members' behavior with strict rules banning alcohol, coffee, and other hot drinks except herbal tea. Mormons are allegedly ordered to wear strict conservative underwear that limits clothing choices for women. The church practices thought control and information control, with members told to only access church-approved books and websites, the submission alleges. The submission also accuses the church of invading the privacy of young people, potentially opening them to the risk of abuse. It is very common for youth to be regularly asked intimate questions about their sexual activity, including if they masturbate or have engaged in any sexual activity with others, the submission claims. All of these behaviors are opportunities for leaders to groom younger people, making them more susceptible to psychological and, in some cases, sexual abuse. The specific behaviors and financial structures outlined in the report, hoarding wealth, prioritizing tax savings, and employing high control tactics, logically align with the operational model of a fiduciary corporation that demands loyalty from its investors while protecting its bottom line. These actions stand in direct contradiction to the self-sacrificial, poverty-focused, and mercy-driven ethical model established by Jesus Christ. It might be just me, but I don't remember the New Testament scripture that said, "And when the coffers swell beyond measure, give thanks, for the Lord hath blessed the diligence of the chief stewards, who, through their sound fiduciary judgment, have made the church immune to the earthly fluctuations of famine and pestilence, even as the marginalized go unsheltered and the little children cry out for bread in the streets." In related news, let's go to the UK for this article. A bid to convert an agricultural barn at Graysmore Farm, Elm, near Wisbech into 4 homes has been dismissed by the Planning Inspectorate, bringing an end to a closely watched rural planning dispute and inadvertently shining a spotlight on one of Cambridgeshire's most quietly influential landowners. The proposal, submitted by Farmland Reserve UK Limited, a charity ultimately owned and directed by a Utah-based nonprofit tied to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, was rejected on November 20th, 2025. The ruling has not only halted a small-scale housing scheme near Elm, but has also prompted renewed public curiosity about how one of the world's wealthiest religious organizations came to own vast tracts of farmland in rural Finland. And because the church always needs a faith-promoting answer to the claims of their greed, let's look at this article from the Deseret News that says, a new TV documentary series from the Church News goes around the world to show the welfare farms and the welfare food processing and distribution facilities owned and operated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The series also features Ag Reserves, the commercial arm of Farmland Reserve, which is an investment affiliate of the church. The 3-part series, titled Harvest of Faith, is part of the Living Record, a Church News documentary series. The first episode is scheduled to air on BYU TV on Sunday, November 23rd at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, with episodes 2 and 3 to follow in the coming weeks. In addition to the TV episodes, the Church News will have a 3-part series of articles. You know what? They can make all the flowery TV series they want, but when it comes down to it, last year they spent less than 1% of their vast reserves on humanitarian aid. Now let's go to LDS365.com, where it says the process for creating membership records for new converts has changed. Previously, missionaries submitted information via the Preach My Gospel app, generating a pending record in leader and clerk resources for clerks to finalize. Now the system creates a membership record directly from the missionary submitted data. Clerks no longer need to process pending records, but instead complete an incomplete member's profile task. This task appears in the Actions and Messages prompt or under the Create Record page in the membership menu. Clerks should review and fill in any missing details, such as parents, spouse, or children. Once complete, the incomplete member profile task will be removed. This should be done promptly after baptism and confirmation to ensure accurate records. This updated process will create membership records for new members faster and enable bishops to ordain those who are eligible to the Aaronic priesthood and issue temple recommends for eligible members within 1 week of their baptism and confirmation. In the corporate sense, the goal is to move the customer, the convert, as quickly as possible into the next stage of the sales funnel. The next stage is covenant making and access to rituals, which are the basis for lifelong loyalty and compliance. Now let's go back to BYU for this video.
Your 6th refill of the day may seem harmless, but BYU Dining Services says otherwise. Up to 25% of soda is being stolen.
We're finding, especially this last semester, an increase in guests that are stealing the soda.
And when asked why they do it, students give a variety of reasons.
Why not just use this cup forever?
I don't feel like there's like a time limit to how many times you can reuse it.
I want soda lots. And I want to not pay all the time.
In response, BYU Dining Services recently put up signs to enforce that refills are only for the same visit.
It's not meant for people to fill up their hydro jugs or anything like that. It's same visit only, just like any other restaurant out there.
At first, some students questioned whether this actually applied to them.
Well, initially, I didn't realize that was for me because I was like, oh, well, if they're probably talking to people with water bottles.
But Dining Services is enforcing this rule to everyone, even those sustainable users.
There may be some that truly are surprised or don't understand that you had to buy the soda, but there are some that do know, and we're trying to help honest people be honest.
Although it's too soon to tell, BYU Dining Services is optimistic that this will put an end to the issue.
Like it's probably fair. So I can see that being an issue that they'd want to enforce.
As BYU Dining Services continues to enforce it, they will be keeping a close eye on the issue.
I do not condone stealing from small, locally owned businesses or businesses who genuinely do good and treat their employees well. I am also not surprised that BYU has a soda theft problem. And last up today, let's finish with this great quote that says, "Accountability feels like an attack when you're not ready to acknowledge how your behavior harms others." And that's your update for today, folks. I absolutely hope you have the day that you deserve.